And here we are already at the end of the Measuring for the Art Show unit, here at days 9 and 10. Now, I will warn you that I'm not really going to explain day 10, certainly in the end of day 9, the way that the book does, because I don't totally get it or agree with it. But we can talk that through, and then we'll meet as a group to decide as a team how we actually want to proceed with wrapping this up. Day 9 starts with a mini lesson, which is another addition string, and then it moves into what it describes as like an assessment, a check-in for the students to work on individually, as well as like making a class book, but that's kind of vague and confusing. So here's how I'm going to say that we should do it. That we should start with the mini lesson, the addition string. Then we should review, like recap all of the strategies that we've learned over the last several days of number strings. Now, I didn't mention this in earlier videos, but the book suggests that as you're going through the number strings, you make little signs that explain the strategies, the good ideas and strategies that you've learned from doing the number strings. So, if you watch this video before you've taught all those days, maybe you'll think to do that in advance. And if not, then today might be a day where you can review back through those number strings and jog everyone's memory about what those strategies were. Now, the order of these is up for discussion, but I think that after the mini lesson, sort of recapping all the strategies, then giving kids the assessment to work on individually, where they'll have to choose strategies on their own to apply, is the better idea. However, if you wanted to, you could do the mini lesson, then go straight to giving them the assessment, and then as like the recap for the whole unit, either if there's time at the end of the period or tomorrow, you could work collaboratively to create signs or pages of a book that you'll put together that would demonstrate all the strategies that you've learned. Now, at the end, there's this like, should we create a book? Should we record our strategies? Maybe you guys have some other idea, like we could do some cool thing on Seesaw where they could demonstrate all the things they've learned and the strategies. As for materials needed, you'll just need copies of Appendix H, which is the assessment. It's 2 pages. You could do that front to back or one-sided. That's your preference. Okay, so the number string. Today's number string covers the topic of like taking a tricky problem and making it easier by moving some numbers around. So the problems start with 58 plus 22. I'm giving you a big snapshot here, but we would go through these one at a time. 58 plus 22. And they might start applying their strategies of breaking up the 22, count 2 more, and then jump your leaps of 10, and you get to 80. However they talk through that, it doesn't really matter. Then your next problem is 60 plus 20, which you should notice has the same answer. It's 80. So, you know, you can leave that there. Kids might start to ponder over that relationship. And then the next problem is 30 plus 50. They might think there's a connection between 60 plus 20 and 30 plus 50 because they're both tens numbers, but really the problems are broken up in pairs that are connected because they have the same answer and because they like can be made into each other, if you will. So they should be able to look at 30 plus 50 and just get that really easily. Hopefully you don't have to do a whole big drawing. They should just say 30 plus 50 is 80. We know that because we're just counting groups of 10. Then you get them with 28 plus 52. And a lot of the kids should probably not see a connection right away. They'll do 28 plus 52 and they'll maybe take 2 jumps to get to 30 and then take 5 leaps of 10 to get to 80 and they'll see that answer. Maybe they'll try some other way of adding the 10s and adding the 1s. Whatever that strategy they use is fine. But if they don't already start to notice that the answers are the same, maybe start bringing that to their attention, saying, "What do you notice here? Do you see any patterns that I'm creating with these problems?" And so that they have that on their minds as they're thinking. Now, 32 plus 48 is the next one, followed by 33 plus 47. As kids are explaining their thinking, I just wanted to give you a couple other ways to show on the board what ideas kids might say. So the number line is super duper important, but like some kids might be describing breaking apart the tens and ones. So 32 plus 48, they might say, well, I know 32 is like 30 and 2, and 48 is like 40 and 8, so I'm going to add the 30 and the 40 together to get 70, and I'm going to add the 2 and the 8 together to get 10, and I know 70 and 10 is 80, so that's your answer. So you might want to draw it like this with these like number bonds almost to make it clear. Some kids might see this more clearly. Another way you might want to show it, if a kid explains, well, I did 33 plus 47, I moved the 3 over to the 47, so I changed the numbers 33 to 30, and 47 became 50, and that was an easier problem to do. So these are just a couple other ways you might want to show the thinking of the kids on the board, as well as just the number line, which we've been using pretty regularly. The last problems in the number string are 98 plus 42. This one, if their kids are picking up on this pattern, they should see that you can move the 2 over, and this problem would become 100 plus 40, which is actually pretty easy to do. If kids are starting to pick up on that, and you put this problem on the board and ask for quiet thumbs up to show their answers, and they're like fairly quickly figuring that out in their head, that is an awesome time to pause and marvel at how awesome these kids have gotten at adding. Say, did anyone think they would start second grade and know how to do 98 plus 42 in their head? That you could just solve this really tricky problem and get an answer 140 without even using paper or a calculator? What awesome mathematicians we all are. Because that is actually super impressive for second grade. 97 plus 34, the last problem in our number string, of course, takes it a step further because you can move your 3 over to the 97, compensate there, and make that into 100, but then you're still left with 1. It doesn't match up perfectly, but it becomes 100 plus 31, which is still a problem they should be able to do, or one could do in their heads. So that's kind of an awesome thing. So at this point, maybe you've already created your strategy signs from following the original directions that I didn't say in the book, as you do number strings of writing a sign about your strategy, or maybe you haven't. Maybe today's the first day you're going to do that. So today's strategy you might call make a tricky problem into friendly numbers by moving the ones around. Maybe you have a better way to say that. But talking with the group, you can look back to some of the other problems you did. Maybe you save those on chart paper. And you can talk about one strategy is making jumps of 10. One strategy is breaking apart the 10s and the 1s. Another strategy is moving to a landmark or a friendly number. See if you can get the kids to generate these on their own. If this is like where this lesson goes for us all, then I think this is a useful list to guide where the conversation will go. They might have even more ideas, which would be awesome as well. After you talk about your strategies, I think that's a good time to bring out the assessment and say, now I want you all to show me what you know. For the assessment, they should be working individually, not in partners, but it's just these 4 problems that they get to do. They have all this space to show the way they did it, and then a line to explain in words what their strategy was. Now, day 10 is called Celebrating the Art Show, and I will quote from the book. It says, invite parents, the principal, and interested others to come to the art show. At the show, read the big book you have put together explaining the math you have done. The children can now serve as experts to help other children in the school do a similar project. Now, I gotta tell you, I don't totally see that. You never actually made an art show as a group. We didn't do that here. The big book doesn't seem super interesting to read to a group of parents or the principal. And I just don't know if this particular unit is cause for this kind of celebration. I think math is always a reason to celebrate, but you know what I mean. So let's talk as a team and think of another way that we can highlight the incredible work that these kids did over the last several weeks, and celebrate all of the awesome learning that we did. Great work. Thank you so much. You're all awesome. And you are done with measuring for the art show.